Welcome to the Crazy Chicken People podcast. If you're crazy about chickens, then you're in the right place. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me again today on the Crazy Chicken People podcast. You know, there's some weeks where I've got a topic lined up to talk about that maybe I spent a couple or a few weeks working on, or even thought about a long time before recording it. And there's other weeks where I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, and I have to go back and maybe look at some notes or ideas that I've written down at some point for future episodes. But usually I end up on a topic because it's something that happened to me or my chickens recently, or maybe to a friend's chickens. And I find myself talking about it with people at work or texting pictures of my chickens to people and telling them the story behind it. And oftentimes I'll get a response like, "Oh, cool, thanks for sharing," or "Hey, that's really nice, but this is a scheduling meeting for the whatever project." And I'm reminded that I started doing this podcast so that I could talk about these things with people who actually like to hear about chicken stuff. This is one of those weeks. And though it was nice that our office admin had entertained me, watched the videos I had taken, and asked if those little birds were baby chickens, I'm hoping that you guys will be a little bit more interested in the story than she was. And hopefully want to hear about some of the things that I've been doing to make sure that the new babies and their mama have a safe, comfortable place to live. So today, I'm going to be going over my last few experiences with broody hens and their babies after the hatch, including how I'm helping to take care of Madonna and her current babies that hatched over the New Year's weekend. I'm going to go over a few things I'm doing differently now than I did the last couple of times that we had a hen who had hatched out chicks. And even though it's something that I do see gets talked about a lot by backyard chicken keepers, I'm not really going to get into the conversation of how to get a broody hen to stop being so broody. It's just not something I've dealt with because every time I have had a hen go broody, I knew that she was sitting on fertile eggs since all my hens live with at least one rooster. And I've found that watching a mother hen care for and teach her babies how to grow up to be chickens is one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to be a part of since we started raising them. So to start this off, the first thing I'm always looking for now is to recognize early on that a hen has committed herself to sitting and hatching eggs. The first time we had a hen do this, I really had no idea that Madonna had gone into seclusion because she was getting ready to be a mama. And I actually thought that something was really wrong with her. I noticed that she would always be in the same spot in the coop where she had typically always laid her eggs. And Madonna's a silkie, so her nesting spot was on the ground in the corner of the coop. And I'd only ever seen her there if I happened to come in while she was laying. So seeing her continue to stay in that spot, never out with the rest of the flock, this really had me concerned. I never saw her eating or drinking, she wouldn't come out for treats, and I thought there was like a real problem going on. I did some research on this, talked to a few people, and figured out that, okay, she's just getting ready to have some babies. And the mistake that I made then was that I really didn't do anything at all. I didn't think that moving her and her nest would be the right thing. I didn't want to interfere with nature taking its course. And I do think that was the right decision, but I should have been setting up a better situation for her in the coop by providing her her own water and food, maybe a little partition to give her some privacy. Now, all that said, she was successful that first time. She did hatch out 5 cute little silky babies. But when the day came that those babies were born, I was back to, again, not really knowing what to do to care for them, or if I should do anything at all. So, of course, I turned to social media. I asked for some advice and got pretty much every possible suggestion, from take them inside and keep them separated to just leave them be, don't do anything, and everything in between. Asking advice on the internet rarely fails to give you every possible answer, and usually leaves me feeling even more puzzled than when I started. So at that point, I just decided to go with my gut and do what seemed right to me. I gathered up Madonna and her babies, took them into the barn, and made them a safe little area where I knew that at least the babies would be safe. Now, I don't know if this was necessarily wrong or right, but I knew at least I'd be able to keep a close eye on them, and I would be sure that those babies weren't getting hurt by any other birds. I really wasn't sure how that would play out if I left them in there. And they're so small. I was just afraid that, they might get trampled or smothered or maybe even attacked by the blue jays that had been getting into the coop and going after eggs. I also didn't know at that time how Madonna was going to really take to being a mom. Now, it turns out she's actually a great mama hen, but I just didn't know, and I wanted to take every precaution that I could. So I ended up keeping them in the barn for about 5 or 6 weeks. It was about the point that I could see Madonna was ready to get back to her normal routine of not being a mom. So at that point, I just knew that I needed to find a way to integrate her and her babies back into that flock, which actually went mostly fine. Brock Purdy was definitely happy to have her back. But the babies had a harder time fitting in, and I remember thinking that maybe they would have been better off had I just found a way to keep them all together. So the next time this situation came up was with Britney Spears, who was having Jeffrey's babies. And at this point, poor Britney, she had been trying on and off for months to hatch eggs, but the Blue Jays were just so aggressive. I mean, I really had a problem with these little things. Just kept getting into that coop and pecking at her eggs, I think before they even had a chance to start developing. It was really sad to see Brittany keep losing those eggs over and over and keep trying to restart. So once I got them into a situation where the Blue Jays could no longer get to them, she was really quick to get back on that clutch of eggs and start trying to make babies again. So this time, I did make sure that she had a nice, safe spot in the coop. She had her own feed and water that was close by. I just wanted to make sure that she could take care of herself while she was also sitting on that stack of eggs all day. And she was in a very safe situation also. At that point, it was just her and Jeffrey and one other hen, this really sweet little silky hen that we had hatched out earlier, all living together. I didn't really have any concerns that this other bird would cause any problems or go after the babies, and I knew Jeffrey was in there to help protect in case anything did happen. So she did get to hatch out 3 little baby chicks, which was just amazing. We were so happy for her, knowing all the times that she had tried to do this before and just how badly it seemed like she really wanted to be a mom. And I think she was really meant to be because she was a great little mother. And I swear, even Jeffrey acted as like an active father in raising them. He would take them out in the run and teach them how to scratch and peck. It was truly an amazing thing to see. This is probably one of the reasons I can never be mad at Jeffrey even when he attacks me. And after seeing this, I definitely felt like this was a much better way to go rather than pulling the mother and the babies out, because I did see that it seemed to stress Madonna out pretty good those first couple days when I did remove her from the coop. So I had decided at that point I was just going to let Brittany and Jeffrey raise those babies in the coop, and I was going to intervene as little as possible. So I would still come by and check on them every day or multiple times a day if I could, making sure that, the food and the water was accessible to them, that they seemed to be getting around the coop and run okay. But I wasn't able to be as hands-on with them as I usually am when I'm raising chicks in a brooder. So I knew that they might not be as open to human interaction as the chicks that I had raised before were. And I figured, okay, that's something I can deal with. Once they grow up, I can start to get in there a little bit and have them get to know me. But because I wasn't in there, like really picking them up each day, I wasn't doing the regular health checks on them that I typically would, just making sure that they were developing okay and that everything seemed right. And as if it was meant to teach me a lesson for that, we actually ended up losing one of them about a month after they were born. And it looks like what happened is that one had developed crossbeak pretty badly. I'm not really sure if there's anything I would have been able to do had I seen it earlier. It was pretty bad. So it was very sad to see one of them pass and see the way that affected Brittany and Jeffrey too. Like they really took it to heart. I could just see it in them. So another hard lesson learned there. And maybe this is one of the reasons that a lot of people do try to keep their hens from going broody. It can be a lot of work and heartache when things don't go well, but it is pretty awesome when everything does go right. And so far with Madonna's newest hatch, I've been able to take some of those things that I've learned from previous experiences and provide what I think is going to be a much better environment for them to grow up in. Better for Madonna for sure. I think it'll be better for the chicks, and it should work out better when it comes to bringing that whole flock back together. So I was going to do a quick run through on how I have them set up now and what I'm planning for the next few stages. So the first thing I did as soon as I noticed she was getting back into mama mode was I set up her own little space in this coop. Made sure she had her own food and water so that she could take care of herself without having to go too far. I know that she's a committed little mama hen and rarely takes any trips away from those eggs. So I wanted to make sure that it was easy for her to take care of herself as well. I also made a point to add some insulation around the area that she had set up for her nest. It's a cold time of year, and honestly, I didn't even think she'd be able to keep those eggs at the right temperature. She's just such a little bird, and it's not much warmer in that coop than it is outside. So I wasn't really sure how that was going to go. The next thing I did was started getting that coop ready to split into a couple of areas. Hoping that those chicks would indeed hatch, I wanted to make sure that they and Madonna had their own area in the coop, that they could also get out into the run a little bit and have some outside time, while still being safe and protected from the other birds, just in case maybe they got a little too curious or maybe even a little bit jealous. Those silky chicks are just so tiny. I didn't want to see one of them get trampled or smothered or anything like that. So now they are out, and them and mamas have access to about a third of the coop. And I use some hardware cloth to create that outdoor area so that they can get outside when they like. They're able to be out there, see the rest of the flock. The flock can start to see them and get used to having them around. And I'm hoping that once they get bigger, this is going to make a seamless transition, getting them all back together. Not exactly sure how long I'm going to keep them separated. I'm thinking, at minimum 3 or 4 weeks. I want them to grow up a little bit and be big enough so that they could be safe if they are running around with the rest of the chickens, but I'm really just going to play it by ear. This coop is actually set up kind of unique. I can split the coop into two separate areas that each have their own run. So if needed, I may put Madonna and the babies into that other coop space. They'll basically be sharing a run, just with a little bit of wire fencing in between. I think this could work out, but ideally, in about a month, I'd like to just let them all start living together again and maybe just do it on a weekend so I can watch that first couple days and see how things are going. Just want to make sure that they're safe and that none of the other birds are causing them any problems. Now, one other thing I did in that coop, and I know that this is something that can tend to create controversy amongst chicken keepers. It's something I've talked about before, and maybe this is going to go against what I said, but because it is so cold out and those chicks are just so little, I did go out and buy one of those brooder plates so that I could provide some kind of warmth in that coop. I know this is a taboo subject, but I feel totally good that I've done this very safely. I'm not worried about those brooder plates like just igniting anything on fire. I know there's a risk that, possibly they fall down into the bedding or something like that, but I've actually got it secured really well to the wall. Just a little bit of warmth is radiating off of there. I set it up just over where the nest is. I just want to be sure that those babies are going to stay warm for the next few weeks. We do have kind of a cold front coming through, and I would just be heartbroken to walk out there and find that one of them had died, maybe because it got a little wet or for some reason didn't get under mama that night and just froze to death. I couldn't take that. So I'm not an advocate of heating the coop, but I know that I did it very safely, and I know I did it for a very specific reason. I check that setup every day to make sure that nothing's coming loose or anything like that. It's something I'll keep a close eye on. I'll take it out of there as soon as I think that I should. I actually just got back from checking on those little babies. I was able to spend a few minutes watching them learn to peck around and scratch. I saw that they've been going after the grit a little bit that I put in there. So I think Madonna's doing a great job as a mama once again. So hopefully in a month or two, I see them growing up, and as soon as I feel like they're big enough to live with the rest of that flock, I'm just so excited to see them all come back together and watch that family grow. In one of my first episodes, I talked about how much I loved hatching chicks, and I definitely do. We've hatched them out in our incubator up in the house a few times now, and as cool as that is, seeing a mother hen take care of her babies is hands down one of the best parts of raising chickens that I think I'll ever experience. Now, I don't know if there's a right and wrong way to do this. I'm sure somebody would say that there is. I've had some mistakes in the past. I think I've learned from those, and I'm definitely feeling good about this group of babies. I'll let you guys know how things develop in the coming weeks with them, but just so excited to watch them grow up with her. And I guess I'll get to find out if Brock Purdy has being a dad in him. He hasn't really seemed to take much interest in the chicks yet when I see them in their little outdoor area. He just kind of stays back with the other hens, but we'll see what happens once I let him in there. If any of you guys have experience with this and have some good tips for being successful helping a mama hen raise her babies, I would love to hear about it. Thanks again for checking out this episode. and I'll talk to you guys later.